You are now tuned in to the Storm Tracker Podcast.
All right, it's the Storm Tracker Podcast. I am Marcus Benjamin here with my guy Frank Tucker, representing the Crib, South Florida. We are both representing CanesCounty.com, part of the Rivals Network. And this week is National Signing Day week. But it really doesn't have the same, anticipation as other national signing days because now the early national signing day already gone here. Miami not in contention for a lot of players. Just a couple of players that we know of that Miami could possibly add to the class are Jamel Howard, who visited last weekend, and also Nicholas Harbor, which Miami did an in-home visit last week. Those are really kind of the top two guys going into National Signing Day. But the real news for the Hurricanes is really all about this coaching search, Frank. So everybody wants to know who is the next offensive coordinator at the University of Miami. And we did learn of a few names that we're interviewing within the past week. A couple of interesting names of SEC, kind of a background for both of those guys. Frank, who do you think has the best chance at this point to get the offensive coordinator job now that Josh Gaddis is officially out?
I think Marcus Arroyo, former UNLV head coach, former Oregon offensive coordinator, probably has the best chance at the position. I haven't heard that he's interviewed just yet, but there's a previous relationship there with Cristobal. He was there for the first couple years of Mario's tenure at Oregon, and he's got head coaching experience, so he can help from that aspect. So we know he can communicate, which would be something that Miami hasn't seen since Mario's came under Gaddis. I think that's probably going to be the guy for the job. We have heard Dan Mullen interview for the job. Said, there was a source that said that he was in Coral Gables last week talking to Mario Cristobal, and he has been rumored for a number of different offense coordinator openings around the country, including Alabama. A lot of the rumors are that he didn't really want to leave his family for Alabama. So I think that's why Miami could be a potential fit. He gets to stay in the state of Florida. They get to just move just a few hours down, right? It's a match made in heaven. It's a chance for him to get back into coaching with a solid offensive line, some really talented running backs.
Yeah.
There is some talent at receiver and a chance to revive Tyler Van Dyke's career. So I wouldn't be surprised to see if it was Mullen. I don't know if there's a ton of traction there just yet, but it is interesting to see that his name is popping up among interview conversations. Another guy that I'm hearing could get an interview, and there's an interesting connection there, is T. Martin, former USC offense coordinator. He's coached at spots like Tennessee, right, a few other places. He's in the NFL right now as a wide receivers coach with the Baltimore Ravens. He's a guy who would be interesting just because his son plays baseball at the University of Miami. He was supposed to be a walk-on quarterback as well, former three-star prospect on the football field, and then one of the top baseball players in the country. So he's already at Miami. So that's why, for me, if he wanted this job, I think he'd be a good fit. You got a guy
At wide receivers coach or
because you could fit him into the Gaddis role and get a quarterback coach if you really wanted to. I would love to see a guy like Ryan Williams come in and help in some way, shape, or form if you were to bring in like a T Martin, right? A guy who doesn't necessarily have to be on the field, but can work with the quarterbacks, has national championship experience. So I don't think T. Martin coming in to be an offensive coordinator and then a wide receivers coach would be such a bad thing. I know everybody's got a bad taste in their mouth because of what happened with Gaddis this season, but if you could bring in a high-quality young quarterback coach that can mesh with Tyler Van Dyke and help him develop in his final year at the University of Miami while also helping develop Ja'Carri Brown, I don't think that would be such a bad thing. I think it could work. I think it could work, but those are the three names that I'm hearing pretty heavily right now. Obviously, there are some pipe dream guys that everybody talks about, the Scott Frost of the world. Uh, I just don't know if those are going to happen.
I actually heard Scott Frost is a hard no from what I hear from the inside. I hear that's not going to be a possibility. I heard he's got some issues that he has to work through. Let me just say that. I don't want to put his business out there, but a lot of us, we deal with certain issues, and from what I hear, there's a kind of a personal issue going over there with Scott Frost. So that's why he's going to be a hard no. But one of those names that I think you were thinking about that are, our dreams, I guess you could say, is Ken Dorsey, man. I'm going to put that name out there. Ken Dorsey is definitely I think should be a possibility just because, former quarterback here at Miami. It's a name that it's a splash higher, it's a splash name that everyone down here knows. And he has, a wealth of experience already in the NFL. So I don't think recruiting will be an issue for Ken Dorsey. I mean, he's Ken Dorsey, I mean, and he is a quarterback guy. So he's a offensive coordinator that will be looking at it from the quarterback's perspective because he played the position. So I don't think you really need a quarterback's coach when you add him. I actually think you need like just a offensive coordinator, QB's coach combination. I'd rather see that combination rather than the OC wide receivers combination. I'd rather see a wide receivers coach that Miami hires. And if T. Martin is going to be the guy or anybody else, then that's the combination that I would rather see. But that's a name that I think Cristobal should kind of look into. Maybe give him a call and see if he is interested. I mean, obviously he's been down here as involved with FIU, so it's not like he's unfamiliar with the college game and kind of how everything works. So I think that's something that would be interesting to see. I mean, Buffalo's offense last season was pretty good, but the only thing that concerns me about it is because it basically ran through Josh Allen, right? I mean, Josh Allen was kind of bailing this team out. So that concerns me if he indeed does become the offensive coordinator, because that kind of means maybe that your quarterback will have to bail you out of certain situations. And I'm not sure if TVD's the guy, man. Based on what happened last year, we'll kind of see. But that's definitely a name that I know Miami fans are interested in. And James Coley is obviously another one, hometown guy, coached down here at Miami Norland, grew up down here, went to Miami High, and also coached here before under Al Golden. And did some things, some positive things, and maybe not so great things during that era. But I'm concerned with him as well because as of late, he was with Texas A&M, and that offense wasn't much better than Miami's the last year. So there's kind of two sides to the sword there with James Coley, but so those are really kind of the names, the popular names. I think you just named kind of the more realistic names at this point, and I'm pretty sure more names will pop up within the week.
Yeah, and I think James Coley would be good from a recruiting perspective. We know what he's done on the recruiting trail at both Georgia and Texas A&M, as well as during his time at University of Miami. Right? People want to talk about how Miami has failed to live up to the billing of being one of the national powers, but recruiting really hasn't been an issue over the years. He was able to grab some top guys. We've seen him be integral in the recruitment of James Williams while he was at Georgia. He knows South Florida, as you just spoke about. Same thing with T. Martin. He's another guy that he has a recruiting prowess to be able to go get top guys around the country, especially quarterbacks. He can help with the West Coast recruiting, which is something that it seems Miami really wants to do, especially at the quarterback position. And he has relationships there that I think could work. He did play quarterback, so it's not outside. it's not outside the realm of possibility. I said that he becomes a quarterback coach. He has been a passing game coordinator before. I know he's coaching the receivers for the Ravens, but if you're an offensive mind, usually, and you played the position, usually you can transition to being a quarterback coach. Maybe not at an elite level like Sean Payton or something, but we know that he has that capability. I think those two guys would be good fits for Mario because of their ability to recruit. We know Mario wants a guy that can come in and add to the recruiting trail. We've heard that he's been adamant with his coaching staff on being able to outwork him in recruiting, and that's almost impossible, right? He's up at 4:30 in the morning, we're texting kids and calling people first thing as soon as they wake up. It's it's part of the game, and that's why I don't think a Joe Brady would be a good fit under Mario Cristobal. I would love to see a Joe Brady just because of his passing concepts and what he could bring in that aspect. But he's not going to recruit. He's not going to put the grind in the way that Mario wants him to. Ken Dorsey, to me, would be perfect because he has a passion and pride for the University of Miami. He's developed multiple NFL quarterbacks. We saw Cam Newton make his biggest jump when Ken Dorsey was at the Carolina Panthers. We saw Josh Allen make that huge jump when Ken Dorsey became the offensive coordinator. And I know Brian Dabble is one of the best offensive coordinators in the NFL and now an excellent head coach for the New York Giants. But Ken Dorsey deserves a lot of credit for that. The offense for the Bills, despite the interceptions from Josh Allen, was pretty good. The running game got better. If he came to the University of Miami, that'd be an absolute home run hire because of just the pedigree of who Ken Dorsey is in the program. I know that there is a relationship there with Mario Cristobal. They have conversations. I don't know if there's been any conversations about an interview. It would probably be hard to be able to poach a guy like Ken Dorsey from an offensive coordinator position on one of the best teams in the NFL to coming down to South Florida to be an offensive coordinator in college football. I think more so like if a state of Florida head coaching opportunity came up, that's more so something that would be his speed rather than jumping down for a lateral position that might not even that's not even on the same level. So
Yeah.
I think Ken Dorsey would be awesome. I just don't know if realistic, like you said. But the three that I named, the T. Martins, the Dan Mullins, and the Marcus Rose, I think would be all really good hires. Uh, I know people are going to probably be disappointed if a Marcus Arroyo gets a job, but remember he was a high quality candidate head coach coming from Oregon. He was an emerging star in the coaching ranks, and he didn't do bad things under Justin Herbert. And we know he's going to run the team that Mario wants and run it pretty successfully. So I think it would be a good fit.
Yeah, I mean, if I had to put some money on it, I would say that Marcus Arroyo likely gets the hire just because of what Cristobal has done as far as who he hires. He pretty much kind of hires guys he's familiar with. I mean, he hired Gaddis because he had a relationship with him at Alabama, and he obviously has a relationship with Alex Mirabal and Joe Salavea. Like these are guys that he's been familiar with and he's worked with before, so wouldn't be surprised at all if Marcus Arroyo does get the job. I mean, he did lead Oregon to a Rose Bowl win. I mean, when's the last time Miami's been to the Rose Bowl? 2001. So if Miami can do that, then that is definitely a step in the right direction, and we'll kind of see what happens. Dan Mullen, though, I don't. For some reason, I just don't feel like that's a good fit. Just because I think Dan Mullen will want to be in a almost maybe in a co-head coaching position, just being that he had that experience at head coach at Florida, Mississippi State, and I don't know. It just seems like Mullen has more of a stronger personality, and I think that could potential have some ramifications if he's added to this particular staff. I could be wrong, but that's the reason why I didn't add him to my original list. I just didn't feel like he was a good fit. Obviously, I kind of knew he was a possible candidate, but I just don't feel like Mullen is necessarily a good fit to add to this staff and the rigor that Mario Cristobal will require of him. He's been in broadcasting for the past couple of years. He's been kind of chilling. To just make this jump back under someone else's staff is something that I'm not sure if he will do, but stranger things have happened. T. Martin, I definitely love that idea to add as a receivers coach. Anybody else that you're thinking about that could possibly fill in that receivers coach position?
I think if you wanted to revisit like a Kevin Beard from Toledo, that's something that's possible. South Florida native, we know he can recruit. He brought in guys like Stacy Coley, who was a big time prospect during his time here. We know he can develop talent. He's been in the college ranks for a little bit now, so he's able to kind of develop his coaching resume a little bit more. When he came to Miami the first time around, he really wasn't in the game for that long. Now he's got some gray in his beard, and he's a guy that we know can grind, and that fits what Mario Cristobal wants. He's got a passion for coaching. He's got a passion for South Florida. He still comes down here to recruit from Toledo. He's a guy that would be interesting to me. But just to touch on the Dan Mullen thing, devil's advocate, I don't know if it would be such a bad fit, because everything I heard from college coaches on Dan Mullen during his time at Florida was he was more so a removed head coach than he was like a Mario Cristobal, from the aspect of discipline, from the aspect of being involved in the day-to-day for these kids. He kind of treated the players more like NFL guys rather than college athletes. And that might be a fit, because Mario is more of that hands-on CEO approach, and Dan Mullen really just wants to call plays and win. That's all he wants to do. He's more of an offensive coordinator. We've seen him, kind of collaborate with a guy like Urban Meyer, who's not really an offense. Like, he was more of a CEO type coach, and it worked really well. And I think that Dan Mullen's interesting just because it seems Miami wants to start recruiting more athletic quarterbacks. Jakari Brown under Dan Mullen's scheme could be reminiscent of a lot of the guys that have been successful under Mullen. That power run-based scheme where the quarterback run is a huge part of it is interesting to me. And I think that with the type of offensive line and the trenches that Mario is building with Coach Alex Maribel, it could be a fit. He's a guy that he's going to scheme it up. We know he's been able to develop quarterbacks. We know he's been able to put top offenses on the field in the SEC at the highest level, bring Mississippi State to being, a potential #1 team in the country under Dak Prescott. I like the fit. Now, I don't know if they're going to be able to pull it off, because everything I hear is that he's okay not coaching. It's not something that he necessarily is looking for a head coaching job. He hasn't put his name in the hat for really anything. It's more probably just the best fit, right? And I don't know. I think he'd be the splash hire. He'd be, out of the three guys that I mentioned, the T. Martin, Marcus Arroyos of the world, he would be the splash guy, and that would be big in recruiting. He's not a great recruiter. That's one thing I'm going to say, is he's not a great recruiter. He doesn't hit the trail the way that Mario probably would like. That fit is questionable to me. But just having a former successful SEC head coach as your offensive coordinator pays dividends, because when these quarterbacks, every time you and I speak to these quarterbacks, they talk about they want to be under a successful offensive coordinator. They want to be part of a successful offensive scheme. And it's not always about the relationship with the offense coordinator, more so than it is they want to be developed. So that's why, to me, it could be a good fit.
Has he won anything though? Like
he won a natty as an offensive coordinator at the University of Florida. He helped Tim Tebow become Tim Tebow.
That's right.
Mississippi State has never been as successful as when he was the head coach there. I know his record against top 25 programs, it wasn't great, but we've seen him be able to do some really good things with lesser talent. He was in the SEC championship game not that long ago at the University of Florida and gave Alabama a almost heartbreak scare, right? And I know he had Kyle Pitts and Kyle Trask did really good things under him, which is another interesting thing to me. I think Kyle Trask is more athletic than TVD, but similar traits in a lot of different ways.
I can
Big
see that.
quarterback, big arm. Could work. It could work. Right?
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's going to. I'm just saying spin the wheels, see what happens. I would love it. I think everybody would get excited about that in the
Sure.
Hurricane fan base, and it would just cause some traction around the country on Mario is doing it again. Mario is going big, and he's hitting big.
Yeah. Well, I think you convinced me, bro. I think you convinced me about Dan Mullen. All right, I'm all in on Dan Mullen, but I'm more in on Ken Dorsey, of course. Bring Ken Dorsey home, because it really would be an amazing fit, even if he's just the quarterback coach. But I doubt he would be. But like at least in some kind of regard, bring Ken Dorsey home. All right, so we're gonna move on to National Signing Day, man. I mean, like I said before, we're pretty much in contention with two players, Jamel Howard out of the Chicago area, big kid, 6'3", 320, three technique guy. I mean, these are kind of, these type of players are rare these days, or the good ones are. You just have to get as many as you can, because it's a really important position when, of course, it comes to stopping the run. And yeah, I think if they can land him and kind of steal him away from Wisconsin, which I think Wisconsin is kind of the team to beat here for Jamel Howard, that would be pretty amazing. If they can do that, wouldn't be surprised at all, because this is something that Mario Cristobal has done, going into signing day, just kind of steals recruits from other schools. We saw that with Jaleel Skinner from last year from Alabama. We saw that with Trevante Citizen from potentially LSU last year. So definitely could happen. And then it's the big fish out there, Nicholas Harbor, man. If somehow Miami can land Nicholas Harbor, I mean, there's nothing Cristobal and this staff cannot do if that happens. I do not believe there's a good chance right now, but things can change in the next coming days. But as right now, I think he's pretty much going to go to Oregon. I would probably put some money on that right now at this moment. But things change. I am going to check in with a couple of guys up there in the DMV area, just to be sure if that is still the case. Um, but we'll see. But it's going to be a very quiet National Signing Day on Wednesday.
Yeah, Harbor's situation is even weirder than the Cormani McLean situation for me, because we see him post on Instagram. Colorado. His dad even comes out and says, "Do not listen to my son. He's not in Colorado. He's in class right now." It,
Right.
we haven't really heard anything on visits too much. He was supposed to be in Oregon one weekend. We don't even really know it. We don't even know officially if that was happening, right? He was supposed to come to Miami one weekend. That didn't happen. Uh, A lot of teams went in home this past week with him. We know
Yeah.
Mario Cristobal was one of them. I
Michigan
couldn't even
also
tell you
went in.
where he's going to. Yeah, so South Carolina thinks they have a chance, right?
They do.
Oregon thinks they have a chance. Maryland thinks they have a chance. Everybody wants a piece of this pie, but we don't know who's going to get it.
Yeah.
If you ask me what the best fit is, obviously it's Miami, just because he wants to play as an outside wide receiver, not so much a tight end like people think. I think he just wants to be an offensive weapon more so. I don't think he's going to be a blocking tight end. He's going to
Right.
be a more physical Jaleel Skinner, in my opinion. And he would fit a need. He would definitely fit a need. But on top of that, it would help solidify a top 5 class, where we know Mario wants to win the press conference. That the
Yeah.
image of the Miami Hurricanes under Mario is extremely important. And to be able to say, I got Nicholas Harbor over everybody else, I solidified a top 5 class even after losing the number 1 cornerback in the country and one of the highest rated corners in the history of rivals rankings is, or he was until the recent drop, I guess you could say, right?
Yeah.
But it would be huge. It would be huge. I don't know if he plays right away. We know there's going to be an adjustment period from him
Yeah.
being just a true athlete
Sure.
in the DMV area to focusing on being a receiver, but just true talent, athleticism, 10-1 at 6'5", 225 pounds. Those freaks don't come along very often. And I hope it happens. Like you said, I don't think it does, though.
Yeah, I think what's hurting Miami right now is that we don't have an OC. We currently have zero OC. We currently have zero wide receiver coach on the roster. So it's kind of hard to kind of sell that you will be developed by said guy when there is no guy said. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's the thing for me right now. And I think Miami kind of made the mistake early in this process, trying to recruit him as a defensive end with Jason Taylor, and clearly he wants to score touchdowns. So he kind of left it open to play defensive end, but definitely wants to play on the offensive side of the ball. And right now, with no offensive coordinator and no wide receivers coach, it's kind of hard to sell Miami at this point of his process with days to go. But hey, we'll see. We shall see. Said the
Hey,
Black.
here I got a question for you. Wide receivers coach, and I think this is an interesting take because we talk about DVD a lot getting back on the field. Well, there hasn't been a lot of talk about Pop Cooney getting back on the field. He really was the guy that worked with the receivers this year. I think he probably deserves a lot of credit on how Colby Young developed. I would love to see him maybe get a shot at it. We know he's been gunning for that receiver spot since he's got to Miami. He's kind of transitioned from director recruiting into an offensive analyst, same way DVD did. What do you think about that one?
I think that's a great idea, man. I think both him and DVD need to be upgraded to actual position coaches because what they're doing recruiting, it's invaluable. It's priceless what they mean to recruiting, especially in the South Florida area or in the state of Florida. Period. So yeah, I think that would be a great idea. The kids love Pop and they love DVD. I mean, and these two guys I think definitely deserve a shot, at least to be maybe co receivers coach or co defensive backs coach. Um, yeah, I think that's a great idea, and I think it definitely help recruiting, especially.
Yeah.
So yeah, so we will see how that all plays out. But yeah, you were actually at Pylon Orlando this weekend. 7-on-7 seasons in full swing. Battle Miami 2 weeks ago now, I guess you could say, and Pylon last weekend, and now we've got the football hotbed coming up this weekend. So with what you've seen on the field, who impressed you? Who is really popping again? What teams really showed out last weekend?
South Florida Express took the title and in multiple age divisions, but
Surprise.
surprise, surprise, right? But the focus was definitely varsity. They used a lot of Jaden Glazer this weekend instead of CJ Bailey, and he got an opportunity to emerge, and he did just that. Former South Plantation quarterback going to Venice made a lot of next level throws. His zip on his ball was comparable to any of the top quarterbacks at that event. Him and Josiah Trader and Jeremiah Smith were on point for both days of this tournament. Josiah Trader probably ends up being the MVP of this tournament if there was one. He had like 6 or 7 touchdowns on the second day. Hands, I don't think he dropped a pass, right? Which was a little bit of a transition from Battle Miami, where there were some questionable drops from JoJo, where we didn't really see that from him on Friday nights or in 7-on-7 season last year. And then he went into this weekend and was just the alpha dog. And then Jeremiah Smith, as everybody's seeing on social media, is just the ultimate weapon, especially in the red zone. Made a one-handed catch over 2 guys, and it just had everybody in wow. He made another, Moss type catch over another guy, head topping people. The vertical ability from Jeremiah Smith, his catch radius, the hands are exceptional. Him and Josiah Trader, what a duo. Chance Robinson looked really good. They had a couple of kids from Trinity Christian that we've seen that are really good players. But a guy that really emerged for me that recently popped an Alabama offer and is a Miami legacy was Ryan Mack. He had 2 interceptions, including one where he high pointed the football on a contested catch opportunity. Came down with the interception, clutch type grab against 24K in the championship game, where he came down with 2 interceptions in that game, which were huge. Um, he's a guy that now standing around 6 foot, probably 180 pounds. He's hoping to run a 10,600 meter time this year in track. I think that he's going to be a guy that Miami really is going to have to push for. I know he's a legacy kid, and I know that he's probably a lean there no matter what because of his dad, Rod Mack, who was an impact linebacker at the University of Miami, and the Little League coach for that
Right.
Purple Machine group of Jeremiah Smith, Josiah Trader, Davion Gauss, Cedric Bailey, just on and on and on. And Ryan Mack was one of those core players of that group, and I think he's going to be an absolute breakout player for St. Thomas Aquinas this year with Justice Fitzpatrick, Minka Fitzpatrick's little brother on the other side, OJ Frederick, who just picked up a Miami offer, as well as Florida State at safety. There's going to be a wealth of talent for Miami at defensive back this year, and I think he's going to be one of them. Another guy that looked really good for me was Kobe Howard. Kobe Howard is a superstar. This kid has elite hands. He is growing at a rapid pace. He already has a really filled out frame. I think he could play inside or outside at the next level. He was integral for 24K. Another kid that used to be a Miami target, now committed to LSU at quarterback, was Colin Hurley. He stepped up from day one to day two and nearly willed his team to the championship. They lost to the other 24K team, which was kind of funny. But he was just making some throw. Like there was a corner route, probably about a 15 to 20 yard throw that he put on an absolute dime in the corner of the end. It was a corner to the corner of the end zone where he hit him right on point. It was like there was a defensive back right inside the receiver, and the guy had no chance. And the zip coming from his hand, it's next level. He's definitely going to be a guy that is going to contend for a starting opportunity at LSU very early on. There was a lot of talent out there, though. We got a chance to talk to Tavion Swint, one of the more explosive running backs in the South Florida 2025 kid out of Osceola, who has a Miami offer, was there this last weekend. You can check out that video on our YouTube page. But it was a lot of talent. Jaden Davis, I got my first chance to see him, with my own eyes. Probably about 6 foot, not your typical 5-star type quarterback. He's the number 7 player in the country right now for 2024. Intermediate accuracy, he can hit every throw from hash to hash to sideline to sideline. I didn't really get a chance to see.
Playing for?
He was with Cam Newton. Which I think is going to be awesome for him. We watched Dante Moore develop more and more as he played 7-on-7 with Cam in that OT7. We saw him make a huge jump. And Cam runs more of an integral type offense. It's not your typical 7-on-7 offense. And he takes a huge role in talking to the quarterbacks, being in his ear, telling him where to look. I think Cam does an excellent job as a quarterback whisperer for these 7-on-7 quarterbacks, especially top guys like Jaden Davis. And he looked good at points. I think that, they probably disappointed at the end with Malachi Toney and Winston Watkins. But we saw some things that showed why Jaden Davis is a top 10 player in the country. And then Winston Watkins looks really good. Colorado commit as of right now, 2025 kid. He's already committed twice, and he's only in his second year of high school football.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's going to be a lot more colleges he'll commit to. He's 25. I mean, come on, like we got another 2 years of this.
Yeah, and he's like the number 2 receiver in the country for 2025, I believe, in our rivals, top 100 for the 2025 class. He's at IMG Academy, had a really good season for them, and he looked really good just as a route runner in 7-on-7. He's not a speed guy like you would think out of a slot guy who's only about 5'9", 5'10", but he's got a strong frame. On Friday nights, he's able to run through tackles pretty easily, kind of turns into a running back when the ball gets in his hands. And you saw him he'd be able to run pretty much the whole tree, especially, digs, outs, slants, hitches. Like he was able to run the tree this weekend in Pylon, Orlando. He's a player that I think Miami's going to continuously be on, and deservedly so. Another kid who had an offer from Miami before that I got a chance to talk to was Isaiah Williams, 2024 receiver. He's one of the top 40 receivers in the country, 4-star prospect. He is explosive to say the least. Probably about 6 foot, 6'1", so he's got decent length. He said that when he did talk to the Miami staff last year, that they saw him as an outside talent. So he's not going to be playing in the slot, despite being about 170 pounds. I think he's got the frame to get up to like 190, 195. He does want to get on campus as soon as the dead period is over. He's targeting a March timeframe for a visit. He was hoping to build more of a relationship with whoever that new offensive coordinator is going to be, and having a relationship with guys like Kobe Howard and Tavion Swint. It could be a guy. He could be a guy to watch as Miami continues to get into the Orlando, Tampa areas for recruitment.
Sounds good. Sounds good. Yeah, you mentioned OJ Frederick getting the offer from Miami. He's definitely a defensive back that I thought was standing out at the Battle of Miami 7-on-7. So nice to see Miami offer him on Sunday, and also another cornerback that I like is very similar to Frederick as far as frame is concerned is Xavier Lucas. I think that's a player that Miami should definitely jump on because the old country is pretty much kind of taking notice as far as his talents are concerned. So, very interest will be very interesting to see where they go 2024 wise. That St. Thomas Aquinas team is loading up with all the players that you named, and Stacy Gage now there as well. The talent is always immense, especially with the powerhouse programs like Chaminade, Miami Central, American Heritage. All of those teams will be loaded up, and all of those teams are potential pipeline for the Miami Hurricanes football team. So spring is going to be around the corner pretty soon. The new spring schedule just came out, so it's starting out in March. But other than that, we will be watching the basketball team, see what they do. Basketball team, we'll see if they are still ranked after their loss on the road to Pitt over the weekend. It was a game that they were dominating this game pretty much the entire time, and then Pitt just made a tremendous run at the end to snatch the win away. This team just can't find a way to close out games on the road for some reason. So that's something that is concerning going into February and March. I do plan to be there for the ACC tournament in North Carolina. I think it's a second week. It's like going into the second week of March. So we'll see if they have a great showing in February and March, and if they can duplicate their efforts from last season, making it to the Elite Eight. But if they can't close out games like they couldn't do against Pitt, they couldn't do that against Duke, NC State. They couldn't close out on the road as well. They may have some trouble once March rolls around. And then baseball seasons is officially kind of starting up here in February as well. I'm actually very excited for this team. This team is playing with a chip on its shoulder. Very disappointing exit last season where they were hosting a regional and they just got swept out by Ole Miss last season. It wasn't pretty, very disappointing. A lot of angry Canes fans from last year's exit. But this year they got some new facilities. They got a new weight room. The bullpen is no longer on the field. So nice to see that the baseball team finally has its own weight room. They don't have to share the weight room with the football team anymore. So that's nice. And I think this team's very strong when it comes to pitching is concerned, led by Johanny Morales. And the hitting just has to kind of step up for them to really kind of advance to Omaha this season. Um, those are all my thoughts for now, man. Anything else you kind of want to add?
I want to add that I am excited for Marklight shakes. That's what I am excited for. You and I
Me
having some
too.
shakes at the baseball games this year. That is one thing I'm looking forward to. I haven't been to too many Miami Hurricanes baseball games, but that's something that I'm looking forward to finally experience. Football games have always been my go-to as a football guy, but I'm excited to experience what a Miami Hurricanes game is because people talk about it all the time. There are some bought in fans for the Miami Hurricanes baseball team, and I'm
Yeah.
hoping to be one of them this season.
Yeah. Same here. Same here. All right. So that is going to wrap it up for the Storm Tracker podcast. Until the next episode.